We have Carol Hirota, who is the current Director of Educational Services and Adult Education in the Stockton Unified School District. And she's also the Executive Director of the Delta Sierra Adult Education Alliance. And prior to that, she served as the Program Director for Stockton School for Adults since she's been served in that role from 1995 until she was promoted into her current position. She's also a member of AXA and a representative on the AXA Adult Education Council. She's a member of CCAE and CAIA, and we are so grateful to have her as a member serving on our CalPro advisory board, and she's also part of the CASAS program evaluation team. Joining her and co-presenting is Susie Pasegi, who is the current Director of Castro Valley Adult and Career Education with the Castro Valley Unified School District. She has been working in K-12 adult education for over 30 years, and she's worked in positions as a teacher, a coordinator, and been the administrator there, served as an administrator for the last 16 years. Prior to Castro Valley Adult and Career Education, she was the Assistant Director at Mount Diablo Adult Education. She's overseen programs of all sizes, but the bulk of her experience has been in career education, parent education, and adults with disabilities. She's also serves on AXA as a region representative and also has served on the Alameda County Workforce Development Board for several years and served as the lead for the Mid-Alameda County Consortium since its inception in 2019. So with that, you know you have some great experienced and knowledgeable and seasoned veteran facilitators, and the topic they're talking about is sharing some of that experience and where they are today and their decisions about how they're going to continue to serve. So passing and receiving the torch. I'm going to turn it over now to Carol to get us started.
Okay, thank you, Cherise. Well, welcome to Building Leadership Capacity, Passing and Receiving the Torch. Both Susie and I are looking forward to our session together this afternoon, just as much as we are looking forward to our retirement. And the next slide is the agenda, in slide 2. Our agenda includes 2 parts. Part 1, passing the torch, and part 2, receiving the torch. In part 1, passing the torch, Susie will start with succession planning strategies, facilitate presenter and participant sharing successes and challenges, preparing yourself for the change, and preparing your school for the transition. Part 2 will be receiving the torch, and I will share the importance of a professional learning network, identifying management competencies, and leading the change process. So Susie will start now with part 1.
So as probably most of you know, the key to making a leadership transition seamless, to go as smoothly as possible, is to have developed a really thoughtful succession plan. And for some, you were able to do that several years ahead. That's the ideal. For some of us, it's doing it fairly quickly at the last minute. So we're going to talk a little bit more about how best to make that happen. But before we do, if you'd like to take a look, you'll see a pop-up on your screen in a few minutes. And we'd like you to let us know if you are on this webinar because you are looking to receive the torch, or if you're looking to pass the torch, if you're looking to leave or retire and pass the torch on to another leader. So please go ahead and enter that poll. Has that come up? No, I'm not seeing
Vicki, can you open up the poll for receiving or passing the torch?
Yes, I did.
You can also just gaze at this mountain lake and think about how great it would be to be there after you pass the torch.
I'm going to end the poll and relaunch it just a moment.
Okay. I wanted to first just acknowledge, I know All of you on this webinar are probably working at home, and this is a tough time to be handling your school and keeping everything going. So I want to say that I think it's impressive how Adult Ed has responded to this, and hope you're hanging in there. All right, so here we go. Okay, so, all right, good to know. So about 2/3 of you receiving, which at some point you'll be passing the torch as well. So it'll be good information, but it'll be good to know who's getting ready for some new leadership roles. All right, 70% receiving and a little over 30% passing. All right, thank you, everybody.
Oh, there's no.
Okay, did that go away? So we're going to start with passing the torch. Did the poll go away for everybody?
No,
It's
I
still
still see it.
You need to click the X at the top to close
Yeah.
it out, and you won't see it again.
thought I did. I don't see it anymore.
I got it. I clicked it.
Oh,
got
thank
You
you.
got it.
Sorry, everybody. This is our first time doing a webinar, so we're learning as we go. All right. So why succession planning? Why is it important? And it is, as you can guess, much more likely that your wonderful programs you built and developed, the processes, the systems that you created at your school, it's more likely that they're going to be sustained if you actually have a great plan for who's going to succeed you. And of course, it can give your school more stability if you have someone in mind, if you have someone that you've trained to take over for you. And it, of course, increases the potential for that smooth transition. And the last thing is it should be proactively planned. It should be something that you plan to do, just like every year you do budget development. If you're doing WASC, you're doing ongoing strategic planning. So on that list should also be, what are we doing about succession planning for any of our leaders at our school, ideally. So here, according to Hanover Research, these are the best practices in succession planning. So number one, anticipate needs. As much as you can think about who's getting up there, who's lots of times we don't know, but thinking about what positions might become vacant. I know at one point I had an assistant principal who came from K-12. I knew he was moving up in the world of leadership, and I knew he wasn't going to be there forever. So I was already starting, a couple years into it, I was starting to plan, what am I going to do to replace him? So don't wait for positions to become vacant to start searching for candidates, to start looking for other people. I can tell you that I knew he was leaving, and I was watching one of my leaders. So I was going to go to the next one, identifying high performers. Who in your organization, always be looking for that. And I think people are automatically doing this. Who's got leadership capacity? Are there some teachers? Are there some teacher leaders that you think, gosh, they'd make a great administrator? Or maybe they're not ready, but what can I do to continue to develop them and coach them to become leaders? So making sure that you provide opportunities. I know a lot of adult schools have department chairs, coordinators, but if you can't do that, maybe if you're going through the WASC process, who can you give the WASC self-study chair to that you want to see them develop those leadership skills? So in my example, I knew that my assistant principal was leaving several years ago. I knew he wasn't going to stay long. And I had this teacher who was starting to share some ideas for marketing. And she was someone that I talked to about maybe that when we started working together, we had great synergy. And she had I could see her working with other staff, that she had some really great leadership capacities. So I actually started trying to intentionally mentor and coach her. And then I talked to her about the idea of getting her administrator credential and reminding her that things might change in our school, and I thought she had great potential, would love to see her do it. And so she actually went, got her administrative credential, and a year later became my assistant principal. So that was my good story there. Something to think about too, you know, if you've got assistant principals that you're hoping to become the principal or, you know, move up in some capacity, to remember to think about intentionally coaching them, to always be looking at, if they were going to be in my position, if you're a director or a principal, what are some things they still need to develop to get to that point, and really intentionally coaching them in those particular skills. And then I think something really important too is to let our staff know that we see potential, to make sure you let them know that you see their potential, and to give them some opportunities to grow. Let them know if you think you're not going to be there forever, that they might want to hang out because you see some potential in them. It might give more likelihood that they're going to stick around and that you're going to be able to sustain or retain them. And the last four, just if you have a succession plan, if you kind of put together some ideas of who could succeed you, to do annual updates, because as we know, things change. And to really think about the standards and criteria. I mean, we're certainly doing that right now for my position. Who do we want in this position? What are the standards that we want them to be able to do and have? What are the skills that we're looking for? And I think one of the key pieces that sometimes gets forgotten is to share that with your HR department, to talk to your assistant superintendent or your superintendent about how important it is to get the right person. What are what's the background and skills that you want that person to have? Why is it important for adult ed? And, you know, you can't make sure, but really talk to your people about how important it is to have someone that can operate fairly independently in adult ed, because we don't have that support of a lot of the district departments. And if they're tempted to move another administrator in the district into that position in adult ed just because they need to make a change, not always a great idea, and it could be a problem for the adult school. Another piece is to consider, if you don't have ideal candidates, and this was something in this report, to consider an interim director, which is something I hadn't really thought about. If you don't have ideal candidates, don't be in a hurry to hire the person that's not the right person for your position, but think about interim possibilities in your succession plan. And then lastly is to think about having an overlap period. So I did find out in my district that there's something called an overlap position, something that you might not know about, because I was thinking if I could stick around for a few weeks when we get a new person on to do that much needed training and transferring of knowledge in the systems at your site. How do we have two people in the same position when you think of position control and how our districts work? And they can create an overlap position for you so that you can then continue on and have some time to overlap. And even in Hanover, it says it's really, really important to have that overlap piece to ensure a smooth transition. So now I'd like everyone to go into your chat and answer this question. What smaller leadership positions or opportunities does your school have, or could you create, that has the potential for identifying and developing leaders at your school? So just think about what you already have, type that in, or what you're thinking maybe right now that you could put into place to do that. Shoot, oops. So a lot of you have, looking at this chat, department chairs, professional learning community leads, which is great in your different departments, department chairs, evening administrator designee, great idea, teachers on special assignment, COE and WASC review leadership, that's great. assistant principal, PLC teacher leads, program specialists,
Mhm.
EL civics coordinator.
Perfect.
Great. All right. Thank you, everybody. All right, so now we're going to share a little bit about our stories, and we'll give you an opportunity towards the end to talk a little bit about your story, because everyone's having different experiences. So Carol, take it away.
Okay, so the first question was, how did I realize that it was time? Well, I looked around and a lot of my college friends and colleagues and family members were all retiring. And when my parents passed away, they both passed away in late 2017. It really put my life into perspective. So that's when I said, well, we need to start some succession activities in Stockton Unified School District. So I was able to have a discussion with my supervisor. And because at the time, as Director of Educational Services, my assignment included the adult school, but it also included about 6 to 8 K-12 schools in a 3-year period. And so, and I also worked with the charter school. So personally, I don't know where those years went. So I knew that I needed to start implementing a plan. The first plan was to employ a principal at Stockton School for Adults, which we successfully completed in February 2018, and then employ an assistant principal at Stockton School for Adults the year of my retirement, which was successfully completed on January 2020. My last day is June 30th. So Principal Jeff Dundas took over the daily operations of the school and fiscal management in February 2018. He also completed the CalPro Leadership Institute in 2019, attended the CASAS Summer Institute, CCAE and CAIA conferences, CDE, WIOA training sessions, CalPro workshops, and he attends as a district administrator meetings, training sessions, such as equity and new leaders, and is our district representative to our consortium, Delta Sierra Adult Education Alliance. He's a leader in the transition specialist team and part of the transportation distribution logistics team for the consortium. He also is currently the fiscal officer for the Miracle Mile Improvement District, a property business improvement district where he's a board member, and our school is located within that district. Our assistant principal, Brian Wright, he attends the district administrator meetings like the principal. However, he just started in January. And he is scheduled for the CASA Summer Institute. He was scheduled to attend CCAE, and he will apply to the CalPro Leadership Institute in 2021. Assistant Principal Brian Wright also attends consortium meetings and will be our representative to the Transportation Distribution Logistics and CNA, Certified Nursing Assistant work groups. We've been able to work together on our WIOA federal grant and our California Adult Education Program deliverables throughout the year, and we completed the WIOA grant application together. I think that this transition plan has been ideal because I've been able to work together with both the principal and assistant principal. I also requested that I had no K-12 assignment schools this year, so I supplemented by working as our executive director for the DSAEA consortium. I believe that there's a system in place for an efficient operation management and an effective professional learning community for our teachers. The principal and the assistant principal each have the skills to improve the student achievement and services to adults and extend a human-centered development process at Stockton School for Adults. Principal Dundas was already well respected within our district through his work as the administrator in the preschool child development program, alternative education, and our adult school as an hourly teacher. Assistant Principal Brian Wright is a CTE credentialed teacher and most recently taught in one of our specialty high schools that focused on career pathways. His partnership with San Joaquin Delta College and experiences with CTE grants will provide the leadership for Stockton School for Adults to grow in the CTE area, where our focus was mainly literacy. I appreciate the leadership that both Principal Dundas and Assistant Principal Wright have engaged in the past few weeks with the threat of this pandemic, which was nothing that we were. So preparing myself for transition, I truly believe I am ready to retire. I look forward to golf, reading, traveling, and sharing my time with family. I do plan to support the consortium work as their very, very part-time executive director. And of course, I always wish the best for our Stockton School for Adults team. So thank you. Susie.
Thank you, Carol. And I wish I had as great of a story as Carol does, but I will tell you what I've experienced. A little bit different than Carol. I really thought I was going to wait to retire until next year, but in January, I had my father had passed away. I just had a lot of stressful events happen in my life and in my work, and I just decided it was time to take better care of myself. And then, I think one of the key factors is I talked to one of my assistant principals who had been there a while, and we originally had talked about the fact that we may go out together, and we knew that was going to be really bad for our school. So she said she'd hang in there if I left. And so that was really a key factor for me to just say, this is the right year to go. It's a hard decision, right? I'm sure all of you are grappling with that. It's because most of us really love our jobs. I love my job. I love the work I do. I love Adult Ed. As you can tell, I've been in it for so long. So it was a hard decision to make, but I also felt there's a quote that I have that says, retirement is when you stop living at work and start working at living. And I just felt like it was time for me to start working at living. So some of the things that I've done, we did do some planning a few years ago, knowing it wasn't going to be that long before I retired. And we did replace one of our teacher coordinators left, and we thought, we had two sort of a teacher on special assignment and a teacher coordinator that left at the same time. So we thought that was actually a great opportunity to say the combination of those two equals the same cost as an administrator. And it was great to have another administrator on our site to potentially take over, but also, if not, just to help support a new person that came on board. So I feel like that was a really one of our best decisions. The timing has just been that it's not ideal for either of my assistant principals to take over the position. So, sometimes best laid plans, and it doesn't always work. So you have to be flexible, of course, with your transition plan, or succession plan, just as you do with everything else at work. So over the years, though, we have definitely developed our leaders. We do, just like many of you said in the chat, we have department chairs, we have coordinators, we have someone who's assisting with co-chairing our WASC self-study right now that I think has a lot of potential. And so we have, I think it's been one of the things I have done fairly well over the years, is just to see people and see that capacity in their personality and the way they communicate, in their work ethic, and figure out a way to get them in some sort of position so we can keep working with them. I continue to coach people in leadership positions on what I know, we've had a couple people that have been interested in administrative positions, and I have talked to them about the things that they can develop and continue to develop to become a successful administrator. As far as preparing myself for the transition, it feels fast. Once you make that decision, at least it has been for me, January feels late to come to the table to make that decision. But I've been doing some activities to prepare myself, realizing that sometimes, that shift and transition into retirement is not, it takes some work, it takes some planning, it takes some preparing. So I've actually been listening. There's a couple of podcasts online that I've been listening to about preparing yourself for retirement. There's some ebooks you can listen to while you're driving in your car. So that's been really helpful for me in some of the activities I'll tell you about. One thing a friend of mine said is, I really love my team, so it's it's hard to say goodbye. It's always hard for me to say goodbye to anyone. And so I've had to, you know, when I talk about retirement with my team, I'm always, you know, I'm sorry. I know this is going to be, you know, it's hard to make a change. I thought, I got to stop doing that. I got to shift to celebrating this idea and let people know, you know, that I'm excited about the next step in my journey, which I also am. And I've been actually journaling what I really want in retirement. Somebody suggested this, and what I don't want in retirement. You know, what I don't want to be doing, because I've heard it's really easy to say yes to part-time projects and positions that come up that you just think, well, that's a good opportunity, but maybe that's not exactly how you envision retirement. So I think most of us are, you know, like, I know I'm planning to do some part-time or project work if things come up, but I want to make sure it's what my favorite things to do, you know, what I really want to do. So if you do that ahead of time, you have a good sense of what you're going to accept, not accept, or pursue. I'm talking to others who are retired for advice. You know, what are those first few months like? You know, what do, you know, when you don't have that structure in your life anymore? I think this little working at home thing is giving us all a little bit of a sense of less structure. Although if you're like most of us, you've been almost busier working at home than you were at work. And then I've actually been, this isn't for everyone, but I created a vision board. There's some great vision board apps on Apple that you can download and create pictures of things of how you want to see your retirement. You know, visions of how people look and how you want to feel, things you want to be doing. So that, and look at that every day. That they say it makes a difference if you really envision what you want. Some advice I've been hearing on the podcast is that you want to make sure you have a purpose. That's one of the hardest shifts when you leave your organization is, you know, you have such a purpose in your position at work right now. You're important to your site and facility. You're important to your people, and suddenly you don't really have that anymore. So what is your purpose, and being clear about that? It could be that it's all about getting really healthy, and that's your purpose for a period of time. It could be some part-time work that you take on. It could be some things you really want to learn, but having that kind of set up ahead of time, I hear, will help. And I've also heard to hold off on saying yes. Did I already say this? Until you really have had some time to be off and feel what it's like to be retired before you start accepting things, because you may not know what you really want to do yet. So that is my story. So in the chat, if you will type in, if you're one of those people passing the torch, what have you put in place or wish you had for succession planning at your site, so we can share? Oops, keep doing that. Yeah, and it's harder. It's harder when you're a smaller school to have teacher leaders. I think that's the biggest challenge, to get creative about those leadership opportunities, whether it just be asking them to volunteer to do a project. Yeah, I understand. Okay, got it. People have outstanding principles. Looks like a lot of people have some really great leadership folks. Oh, hopefully that was old, that you're having a difficult time hearing the speaker. Yeah, that was old. Okay. Right. Thanks, everybody. Okay, so quickly, I'm going to go through this quickly because I realize I'm taking too much time. Some things you can do to prepare your school for transition, and many of you already know these things, but I'm going to go through them quickly. Don't forget to liberally share, and liberally is the key word here. Share knowledge and wisdom and experiences with current staff. Even how you've made decisions. Lately, I'm finding myself with my assistant principals saying, you know, this came up and this is what decided to do, blah, blah, blah. So hopefully you're already doing that as a team, but don't forget. Create a plan for training. So I know I've been starting a little Google Doc of every time I think of something, oh my God, I've got to remember to talk to the new director about that. Because, you know, you think of a lot of things, you're not going to have a lot of time probably for training. So start the list now. Acknowledge feelings of fear and hope in your staff. Change is hard. And sometimes just acknowledging those things and naming them is helpful for people. And then one thing that I actually just started doing with one of my coordinators the other day was to assist her in assessing her priorities for her department, her plans, what she wants to make sure is supported, and what are her priorities in her department of what are things that are really important that she wants to make sure are supported and that the new person understands. And I said I can help her with that, and we can brainstorm those things together. I think that will really help folks. And involve key staff, of course, in the hiring of the new leader. I'm sure everyone is already doing this. Think about your panel. Talk to your HR person about who you want on that panel. Make sure it's people that are going to need to have buy-in, that have good judgment, and that are, you know, hopefully your leadership team. So one more chat. How can you help set up the new leader for success? What are some ways you're thinking of that will make a difference to ensure that that person is successful in your agency? Right, so people are talking about grooming their assistant principal. And, you know, I would suggest not only grooming, I know people are afraid to talk about retirement. You know, you don't want to get people freaked out before you're going to make the announcement. But I would suggest mentioning those things. You know, if you have an assistant principal or someone you're seeing as potential, let them know you're not going to be there forever. Keep them so they don't apply for a job at my site or someplace else, although we'd like them to. Systems, protocols, exactly. And the more systemized you have things written down, making sure you're sharing all those systems, the better. Oh yeah, thank you, Charisse, jumping in. Yeah, this is great. Having people shadow you at board meetings or committees that they wouldn't normally go to. Excellent. Have a mighty map that contains I like that. Important deadlines and to-dos that I use as a guide to stay on track throughout the year. This map will be passed on to the next person. Such a great idea. I was thinking about that. I have all my, I calendar my ongoing deadlines, and how am I going to share that with them? Don't forget to upload all your documents onto Google Drive or some way that you can allow that person to have those things. Yeah. Centralized e-filing system. Yep. That's what we were saying with documents and materials. Yeah, people have lots of confidence in their assistant principals, and boy, it sure makes a difference because then you know they're going to be able to support that new, if they're not taking the position, they can support the new director. Yeah, don't repeat the pattern of not being prepared. Great, all right. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm not going to go through all of them because I know we have a time, but appreciate your sharing. And now we're going to talk about those of you who are receiving the torch and how to prepare for that. Carol?
Right. So as we're transitioning between the new administrators for the school year, especially 2021, the time we are working in obviously is not the norm. We had a discussion, and I'm going to go through my part rather quickly because I think it's really important to have a conversation about how the impact of the directives and the guidelines of the pandemic are impacting, like Susie and Chris, you know, who are going to be planning their transition. And I would like to hear from you on some of your plans that you're trying to do there. I think as a new, how can you prepare? Seek out a mentor. Actually, Susie already talked about, you know, finding a collaborative partner to experience, who is an experienced leader at an adult school. You can check in with professional organizations like Access, CCAE, and CAIA, or someone within your district for an assignment that you aspire to attain. When there are opportunities, definitely go visit on-site, off-site, evening classes, board meetings, you know, any of those kinds of activities. Creating a professional learning network, you can do that with a lot of social media through LinkedIn, Facebook groups, Twitter, and the other resources obviously are CalPro, OTAN, and CASAS. And then creating a professional learning plan would be based on some of the things that you want to learn from, and finding opportunities from practitioners in the field, I think, is really important. And so this leads us to the next topic in the next slide, which is management competencies and sample indicators for improvement of adult education programs. This is a publication that was published in 2001, and the resources were updated in 2018 with the CalPro Staff and Advisory Board. I won't go through all of these competencies, but you can see the 7 areas: leadership, skills, instructional leadership, resource management and allocation, staff supervision, program monitoring, professional development, and community collaboration. The work that we're doing, right, with the consortium is all about community collaboration, and it's gotten a lot more sophisticated than we've had in the past. But the addendum, I think, with on CalPro has a lot of variety of resources for professional learning, and you might want to check that out. If we go to the next slide, there's a Michael Fullan quote. Obviously, he is the guru on change. Change-savvy leaders always know that they can't directly make people change, but you can create a system where positive change is virtually inevitable. So when we start talking, and if we go to the next slide, you know, here are some resources, but one of the things that I felt was really important when I started at the adult school in 1995, because I thought there were so many changes that needed to be made. I realized that I had to first value and respect the history of the organization. The school started according to the CDE in 1917 in Stockton Unified School District. So I think valuing and respecting the history. And a newspaper reporter came and did an article on us, and the description was in the headlines, adult school aging gracefully. And I thought, okay, that's perfect. We will age gracefully together. So then the next same slide talks about some resources. If you want to look on how to establish change, Leading Change with John Cotter is an excellent book. It establishes a sense of urgency and tells you to create a guiding coalition, as well as 5 other important steps. The next one is with Michael Fullan, Emotion, Leadership, Skill on Becoming Change Savvy. He's authored, like I said, a lot of books and articles, and he talks about the leaders that he must continue to learn and teach others by multiplying your effects. And this book is really, really skinny. It's only 78 pages, and it talks about system change. So it might be something a new administrator may want to take a look at. The Power of Ethical Management is a really old book, but I was introduced to this book before I started public school administration. And there were 3 basic ethics questions that I always have in the back of my mind. Is it legal? Is it balanced? Is it fair? You know, does it promote a win-win, equal, equity issues? And how will it make me feel about myself? Do I want this in the newspaper, and do I want my family to know about it? So those are just some really, it's a great book on, like I said, ethical management, because those are real life decisions that you're going to be making. And then of course there's a book by Simon Sinek, who is really famous for the book Start With Why. He has a book on Leaders Eat Last. And this is where it focuses on integrity, loyalty, hard work, and creating a team where leaders sacrifice his or her own comfort for the good of the organization. So that's another good resource. A friend of mine gave me this. She's a colleague at the San Joaquin County Office of Education who is retired, and she gave me this book, You Don't Need a Title to Be a Leader. And I love this book because it discusses how your power of influence is, whether you're a chief custodian, it doesn't matter what your title is, that you can really make a difference. So it shares with you how to empower your faculty and staff. And I think that I know when I started at the adult school, I realized then that we really needed teacher leaders to build capacity of the school. So we started, day one, I need leaders there. So, and starting with the teachers was really, really important. Student-Centered Leadership, a book by Vivian Robinson, talks about how you can make and influence change. Jeff, if you're still on this call, you'll remember these discussions in room 10 where we were focusing on creating high-quality collaborative opportunities for teachers to improve their teaching of what it is that the students are supposed to learn. And we did a nice in-depth discussion on the work of Vivian Robinson and John Hattie, and that was really helpful when we're looking at, building that coalition to support you in your change. There's also a book called Breakthrough Principles, and that's with the New Leaders Organization, and Principal Jeff Dundas is actually part of this cohort. And what I really like about this is it focuses on student learning and curriculum. And I actually attended the Leadership Institute. It was actually called Standards Institute with Unbound Ed, and they work with new leaders, and it's focusing on curriculum and student outcomes. And it also highlights leadership walks with low inference note-taking and classroom observations. So I highly recommend those resources also. The Leveraging Leadership book, I have not used this, but colleagues have used this with their new principles, so you may want to check that one out. The book that I highly recommend is Listening Leader. I haven't finished it yet. I did give this book to Jeff, and then we received another one at our administrators meeting where a principal and assistant principals were each given this. This is about transforming schools, valuing your relationships, listening, and integrating equity into your system impact results. So, and Michael Fulham did write the foreword for the book. And the other thing is if you take the management competencies survey, there's also a Strengths Finder survey, which will share with you some of your strengths and how you can work with differences with other people in your organization. I did not use this in the district, but I used it with a large volunteer organization and college-age leaders so I could understand where they were coming from as they were trying to become leaders. So I think these are resources that can help you facilitate your vision and planning on how to be a leader and create change and continuous improvement for the organization. I call it Kaizen, which is continuous improvement. So that kind of ends my sharing of resources because I believe we have about 10 minutes to talk about question or to have a discussion, question and answers. And maybe Susie and if Chris can chime in, it would be nice to hear how the impact of this pandemic is in searching for a new administrator.
Well, yeah, I will say oops, am I echoing? I would say it's hard. Our district has had a posting, and we have been talking about doing Zoom interviews. I think we're probably going to extend our application period because it was happening right when all of these changes were happening for districts, and I know most administrators have been pretty darn crazy preparing your school for virtual education and making so many shifts and in policies and procedures and community ed and counseling classes. And so we'll probably make an extension and in our posting, but we do plan to do a virtual panel and you know, other activities that we would normally do in the office. We'll be doing them virtually, and we'll see how that goes. Chris?
Can we open Chris's mic?
Yes, I just sent a message to Vicki to
Yes,
open the
me too.
mics for
Yeah.
all participants.
Thank you.
We really wanted to give you this time to really be able to just share. The purpose of the forums is really to talk about things that are happening right now, and we know that you're all dealing with COVID-19 and the changes and implications of that. I know that some people who were going to retire aren't retiring because of that, and so we wanted to let you all have a chance to share too what's happening from your world.
Thank you.
Yeah, so everybody is now in.
So, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, you all. Hey, yeah, I'm also planning to retire. Was planning to retire at the end of June. I kind of knew this at the beginning of the school year. I didn't really let people know about that until after the holidays. That's when I thought, well. So I thought 6 months was enough time to let my staff know, and then to start the process in another director. So so that happened, and it was to plan, and things were moving along. Except a lot of things happened along the way. Besides the COVID-19 problem, we had, you know, our office was closed due to TCE. In the groundwater, that was a whole nother thing. We were doing our WIOA application. All these things were going on at the same time. So, yeah, we're all, you know, it's very different being at home and trying to conduct school business at the same time, and also trying to conduct, you know, the next steps for a director. Planning to have somebody come in, try to hire somebody before I left on June 30th. I don't know if that will happen now. We are definitely looking, as you are, looking at trying to interview people online. So I think we'll be able to do that. So we still may be able to get back on track. The thing is, I might end up now going a little bit beyond my June 30th deadline. That's a possibility that I'm kind of exploring, but I have not made that decision yet. Kind of on a day-to-day basis at this point in terms of what we're all dealing with and that kind of thing. So yeah, this is not the way I was planning to end a career, but you know, adult ed is always like this. You know, we are there. You know, whenever we're, you know, when a crisis comes up, we're there. You know, that's the good thing about it. So,
Good. If there are others who want to share or ask questions, we have about 5 minutes left, and you can raise your hand or just nod visually if we are on camera, or just start talking.
Hey, Sam's sister speaking that has bacon and stuff like that.
I hear somebody with food.
All I heard was bacon.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Beth.
Hello.
Beth, do you have a question? Anything to share?
No, sorry. I just had a comment. That was it. I don't have any questions, but I've been enjoying this webinar and feel like I've taken away some gems, wrote down some titles of some books to check out, and this is very helpful.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
This is Brian Head here. We were
Hi,
very
Brian.
fortunate in that on the Tuesday before the Monday of the actual shutdown of the school, our board appointed Tom Allison along with Stacey Adami to be co-principals of Escondido Adult School. So the timing of that was very expeditious. So that's a very good thing. So the structure is in place at Escondido Adult School.
Interesting. Is that 2 full-time people or 2 half-time people?
It's going to be a co-principal model, which apparently there's a model that's known up in Northern California.
Nice. Good.
Interesting.
Okay.
Good.
You know, go ahead.
I was just going to say, any other comments, thoughts on plans, what takeaways from the webinar today, and just in general?
In
Susie,
general, this is Victoria. Hello, everyone.
Victoria.
Hi, Victoria.
My longtime colleagues who I've worked with for many years now for sharing your wisdom and your experience, and to CalPro, really thankful that you are having this kind of opportunity for the way you framed it in terms of receiving the torch and passing the torch, which I think is a phenomenal way to go. The content has been really good, lots of good ideas, and we needed this so badly. So when I heard about this from Susie, I thought, oh my gosh, this is so great, and it has. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Cherise. This is very well timed.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you all so much. I see Brian, you just joined on video. Did you want to share?
We have my name's Brian. I'm the recipient of Carol's torch, and it's so I've been seeing the plan that she's had in action, and it's been so helpful for me. And I didn't know that transitioning from I was a little bit nervous because I'd spent 20 years in the classroom, and I was really nervous about the change because I've become so comfortable. And so just having Carol there, we work in really close proximity. So everything that comes up, we get to communicate about. And it's been very helpful. And I couldn't be happier with the way the transition's gone.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks.
Hey, everyone. I'm Jeff, and I've been blessed to be with Carol for the last couple of years, and it's been a fabulous transition working through it. And if you have the gift of time, and I know we don't at this time, that's my best suggestion. The gift of time and an organized list.
Gift of time. Perfect. Like that. Thank you.
While we're waiting for more people to think about sharing, I also just wanted to add in that I think one of the best things that someone can do if they're hoping to receive a torch is no matter what you do in your work, to act and think like an administrator. And even if you're not there yet, it doesn't mean you make decisions without checking with your administrator, but in your commitment, in your sacrificing, in whatever you're doing to really show people that you already have that capacity. Because I think, sometimes people think, well, I'm just a teacher right now, so I don't need to volunteer for those things or do those things or show my commitment, but that can really make a difference in the end. Other thoughts, ideas, suggestions?
Is anything? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. It's great.
Thanks, everyone. We have some references here that you'll be able to access. Carol gave us some great books to look at. We appreciate you joining us. Any last questions? From the dog?
From the dog.
Can anyone translate that?
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Before you, we appreciate everybody joining us this afternoon. I think Cherise may have put it out there for a moment. If you'd be so kind as to complete the survey that's just been posted in the chat box, we would very much appreciate it. Again, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Susie. Thank you, everyone, for your contributions. And enjoy the rest of your week. And have a good week.
Thanks, Carol and Susie. Thanks, Vicki.
Thank you, Susie. Thank you, team. Team CalPro. That's awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.